Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Relationship-Based Care Practice webinar series. I'm Tina Jimenez with the State Capacity Building Center Infant Toddler Specialist Network. Our network supports systems and individuals working within states, territories, and tribes to enhance the quality of infant toddler care in early education settings. I'm going to ask my co-presenters to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Law. I'm excited to be talking with you today about individualized care.
Hello, everyone. This is Rana Schaefer, and I'm also glad to be back with you.
Thank you. So now that you've met the team, we invite you to get comfortable and enjoy this exploration of individualized care. Let's take a minute to review the purpose of this webinar series and to identify what you'll need to do to participate in this webinar. This series was designed to increase your understanding of how the PITC's relationship-based care framework, the teaching pyramid, and the third edition of the environment rating scales can work together to measure and support high-quality care for infants and toddlers. Individualized care is one of 6 relationship-based care practices that work together to set the stage for meaningful relationships between infants and caregivers. Here are the goals for today's webinar. We'll identify why individualized care is important for infants and toddlers. We'll share strategies for implementing individualized care. And we'll explore the connection between the relationship-based care practices, the pyramid model, and the environment rating scales. Let's look at what you need for today's webinar. Please click on the handout icon at the bottom of the screen to download 3 items: the Individualized Care Worksheet, the Individualized Care Rationale paper, and the PowerPoint. Be sure to have your ITERS 3 or your FECRS 3 assessment booklets available. As with our previous webinars, if you click on the handout icon, you'll find links to additional resources which can be used to deepen your understanding of the webinar content. Please allow 1 hour to view the webinar and to complete the associated learning experiences. Pause now to gather your materials and then resume the webinar when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's begin with a reflection activity. We're going to think about some of the characteristics that make you unique. How do you approach learning a new activity? How do you like to learn? Do you prefer attending a class with others, watching a tutorial, or having someone model how to do an activity? Do you prefer individualized instruction or learning in a group? Take a minute to reflect on this, then pause the webinar and complete the learning experience for slide number 6. Resume the webinar when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's think about how this activity relates to infants and toddlers. Just like adults, infants and toddlers have preferences and needs as they explore, learn, interact with others, and build relationships. What's unique to infancy and toddlerhood is that everything that they do involves learning something new or refining a newly acquired skill. Caregivers can support children's learning by honoring a child's individual learning style and temperament tendencies. Here's an example. One toddler might jump right in when offered the opportunity to finger paint. He might enjoy the feel of the paint on his fingers, while another toddler might prefer to observe first and then choose to explore the paint with a brush or an object. When we provide individualized care, we are honoring a child's individual needs and preferences. We're building on each child's interests, and we're supporting the child's learning as we build meaningful child-caregiver relationships. Now I'm going to turn it over to Judy to help us understand why individualized care is important for infants and toddlers.
Thank you, Tina. I love thinking about the different ways we learn. Now let's explore the importance of individualized care to support unique learning needs of infants and toddlers. Individualized care means being responsive and adapting to each child's needs to support their healthy development. In high-quality infant and toddler group care settings, family child care providers and caregivers are continuously observing and learning about each child in their care and using what they discover to individualize their interactions, routines, and ways in which they adapt the environment. Engaging responsibly during daily care routines that match the child's way of interacting and reflect their home culture shows that you honor the child as an individual and their family's cultural preferences. Taking time to learn what an infant or toddler likes and how they interact with the world around them provides information you can use to individualize experiences for them. Meeting individual needs communicates to infants and toddlers that they are important, their needs will be met, and their choices, interests, and preferences are respected. Individualized care guides a caregiver to attune to and learn from a baby. All relationship-based care practices are based on this method of responsive caregiving. Now let's think about how individualized care supports healthy infant-toddler development. Research tells us that valuing and responding to a child's unique developmental needs and individual rhythm is central to optimal early brain development, emotion regulation, and learning. By meeting the unique temperament needs, home language, and learning styles of each child, we promote optimal development. Adapting our responsive care supports self-regulation and self-control skills. Building an intimate relationship with a child provides a secure base for the infant and promotes a healthy sense of self, social competence, and well-being. As we discussed in an earlier webinar, healthy relationships that support the social-emotional needs of infants and toddlers are at the core of optimal development. Let's watch a video clip of a caregiver interacting with children. Use your worksheet to complete the learning experience for slide 12 to record your thoughts about how the caregiver adapts her interactions to meet the individual needs of each child. If you need to pause the webinar to finish, please do so, then resume when you are ready. Now I will ask Violetta to bring up a video to show you. Please turn your computer speakers up so that you're able to hear the video.
You want to touch it, Elliot? See how the dirt is like? Look on this side.
Like it.
Would you like some more, Landon? I like it too. Look on this side. It's grass.
Give me a little.
You want to do what? Is that so silly? What do you want to? What do you think we should do with it?
It's flat.
Yeah, it is grass. How does it feel? Kind of pokey. It's long. Whoa, look how long it is. You see how long it is, Elliot? What do you think about that? Tell me what you think about that grass coming out.
I see a red tomato plant.
You want to go make something? You want to go make a plant? Okay, where should we put it? Do you want to walk around and find a spot to put it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ellis is going to hold it, and then I guess me and Elliot, we can walk around and you can too to find a place to plant it. What about right here? Yeah, you want to put it right here? Okay. You want to help me cover that with some mud?
Yeah.
You want to help Elliot put some mud around it so we can plant it? You come on this side. You want to get down and help me put some mud on it? See, we can take our fingers and just...
Look, my leg,
Did your leg get all dirty? It's okay. See, look at my hand. It got all dirty. It's okay. Oh, thank you. See, we'll put some mud around it and plant it. Do you think it will grow more? Yeah, it will grow more.
My hand is all dirty.
Yeah, my hand got all dirty too.
My hand's all dirty.
My hand's all dirty too.
My
That's so funny.
hand is all dirty.
Your hands are all dirty just like mine and just like Ellis's. Our hands get dirty when we play in the mud because it's all wet.
Let me see it.
We have to come back and check on it, okay? And make sure it's growing.
My daddy made a plant every going down, boom, boom, boom.
Your daddy made a plant? Yeah.
Yeah.
We made a plant too. We'll have to come back and check on it.
And a big one make a big one.
It will make a big plant. Do you think it's okay right there? Is that a good spot for it?
Yeah.
You may have noticed how the caregiver makes herself available to each child by being at their level, allowing them both to freely explore, incorporating each of their ideas in the conversation, and following their leads and interests. The caregiver listens and observes the children to understand how she can best support their learning and be responsive. Let's take a closer look at what makes up individual differences in infants and toddlers. One strategy to support individualized care is helping caregivers understand that each child is different, and these differences impact the way the child experiences the world and the way that child needs to be cared for. Caregivers build this understanding through observing and interacting with infants and toddlers and their families. Early experiences have a profound and lasting impact on development. Having a nurturing and responsive adult meeting a young child's needs within the first 3 years of life shapes the way that child interacts in the world, how they see themselves, and their ability to regulate emotions and focus their attention. Development in the first 3 years of life happens at a rapid pace, providing appropriate care that is responsive to the needs, learning, and growth of each child is critical. As we explored in an earlier session, security, exploration, and identity are important focal points of infant-toddler development. Since young children develop at different rates, it is important to relate to each child as an individual. Understanding each infant and toddler in this way will guide responsive individualized care. Family and culture play a critical role in how the infant understands the world around them. The values, beliefs, routines, and traditions that each young child experiences within their family are interwoven in their sense of identity and what it means to be part of a group. Understanding each infant's and toddler's family and culture will guide individualized care practices. Temperament tendencies are an important way to understand children's behavior and identify specific needs unique to the way they interact in the world. Let's look at temperament and the role of the caregiver. As we see in this quote, temperament refers to a combination of tendencies that make up an individual's natural way of relating to people, things, and events. Most temperament tendencies develop early in life and influence the way children see and interact with the world. These tendencies are shaped by genetic, biological, and environmental factors. End quote. Developing an understanding of infants and toddlers' temperament tendencies deepens caregivers' knowledge of each child and allows them to further individualize their caregiving. Research and the understanding of temperament tendencies continues to evolve, and part of that understanding is the relationship between temperament tendencies and life experiences. The pyramid model also recognizes the importance of understanding temperament. When caregivers understand an infant's or toddler's temperament tendencies, they can begin to anticipate what situations may be easy or more difficult for the child. Caregivers can nurture and support strengths, as well as help infants and toddlers manage emotions and cope with challenges. Caregivers can adapt how they care for an infant or toddler by responding to their unique temperament tendencies. Understanding temperament is an important part of and way to build and enhance relationships between adults and young children. When we use temperament to help us understand young children's behavior, we lessen misinterpretations, labeling, and judgments of children's behavior. Take a moment to think about how you might help a caregiver adapt their practices to support a young child's way of acting in the world. Pause the webinar and write down 2 or more strategies you use to help caregivers adapt to a child's temperament tendencies for slide 17 of your worksheet. Resume the webinar when you are finished. Let's think about goodness of fit. Goodness of fit does not mean that adult and child temperaments have to match. A parent or caregiver does not have to change who they are. They can simply adjust their caregiving methods to be a positive support to each child's natural way of responding to the world. For example, if a child is highly active, a caregiver might make sure to have plenty of opportunity to move freely during the day. For a child who needs some extra time in approaching new activities, a caregiver might stay close by, giving the child time to adjust and feel safe. Temperament tendencies and goodness of fit are complex topics. We have only touched on them here to highlight their importance in individualized care. Now I will turn it over to Rana to share strategies about how caregivers can individualize care.
Thank you, Julie, for all that fabulous information. So now that we have a joint understanding of the importance of individualized care, let's think about how to implement this in practice. Planning for infants and toddlers can be understood as planning for possibilities. Caregivers create plans, but ultimately these plans represent the possibility, and caregivers follow children's lead in each moment rather than following a concrete plan. The way we know what to plan is through close observation. By paying close attention and tuning in to each child, we learn about what they need, think, and feel. We then see the child as an individual, and through conversations with families, as they know their child best and can share their values and goals for children, we can plan the environment, engage in responsive interactions, and provide ample opportunities for exploration. In these ways, we'll encourage each child to meet their full potential. Learning how to observe babies and how to use observation as a tool to understand and support the individual needs of each infant and toddler is an essential part of individualized care and relationship-based care overall. What we learn through observation guides how we care for children. For example, a caregiver may observe that a toddler crawls into her lap and does not engage with peers for a few minutes after her parent drops her off. The caregiver might make herself more available during this time and explain to other children who approach that the child needs a little quiet time. Observation guides how to understand individual differences among babies, how to engage in responsive interactions in each moment, and how to practice and adapt individualized care routines, daily schedules, and planning. The pyramid model also emphasizes observation as a strategy to individualized care. It's important when we observe children, we observe their behaviors without judgment. We need to record what we see and hear, and we need to be objective. As we observe, we need to use all our senses and pay attention to our responses. To really understand each child, we need to be available to observe regularly. Although this may be more easily said than done, as a caregiver is so busy. We think about observing while providing care. We can pay attention to what we notice during routines like diaper changing, toileting, serving a meal, and singing simple songs. And an essential component of individualizing for each child is to partner and learn from families. They know their child best. We can learn so much about their child's style of learning, interests, and temperament. Through respectful conversations with families, we learn about the family's values and culture. This slide has a few suggestions of strategies we can use to learn from families. For instance, when we encourage families to share their observations, we give them the message that their observations are important. One of many ways to do this is to have a basket available and encourage families to share photos or notes that support their observations. There are many more, and I'm sure you and caregivers you support can add extensively to this list. We know that curriculum for infants and toddlers is everything they do, every experience they have. For young children, so much of their day is spent in routines, which makes these times perfect opportunities for growth and learning. As responsive caregivers, we need to be able to individualize these routines in a way that best promotes optimal success for each child. It's critical to remember that infants and toddlers have different needs during care routines based on their temperament tendencies, interests, home and family culture, developmental level, and other individual differences. Now it's time for another learning experience. You'll need to use your worksheet to record your responses for slide 23. Please pause the webinar and identify a few routines that infants and toddlers experience each day. Then record some ideas about how each of these could be individualized to meet each child's unique way of learning. Resume the webinar when you're ready. Perhaps you included some of these examples. A child who is temperamentally more cautious may need more support and more time as they assess the situation and consider their participation during hand washing and toothbrushing. We just need to stand close to that child, give encouragement and assist as needed, whereas another child may want more independence during these routine activities. Each infant is comforted to sleep in unique ways that are consistent with families' values and parenting styles. It's important we understand these routines and follow the family's lead to the greatest extent possible. By meeting each child's individual needs, we show them that we understand and care about them as an individual person. The pyramid model suggests several strategies as ways to support each child. Use first, next, or first then words such as, first we put our coats away, and then we can take out the toys. Familiar items from home can really help reluctant children transition into the program. We all sing and play songs, but it's important to include favorite ones that will help make individual children more comfortable. And finally, when we invite older children to help with routines, they feel more part of the program. Always remembering that some children need more support than others during routines. As you work with providers, you might want to consider having a discussion about how they can adjust their schedule to individualize for each child within group care. I just want to mention that there's a great resource in the Infant Toddler Resource Guide. The link is on this slide and in your handout icon that can help you plan for individualized care, routines, and daily schedules. Here are a few considerations when creating daily schedules that allow for individualization. Providing consistency, including a variety of experiences and opportunities to explore in their own way, and expanding on their interests are key. Allowing for ample time for children who need it is an essential part of individualization. Now I'll turn it back to Tina to share how the environment rating scales connects to individualized care.
Thanks so much for that information, Rana. So in this section, we're going to look at some of the specific items and indicators in the environment rating scales that support individualized care. This section is not intended to serve as a training on scoring the environment rating scales, but is intended to show how these quality initiatives work together to support quality in childcare programs serving infants and toddlers. As Rana mentioned earlier, caregivers can benefit from you thinking together with them about how to individualize their routines and schedules. In the personal care routine subscale, item 6, diapering and toileting, indicator 7.2 requires that diapering or toileting schedule is individualized for infants and toddlers. Because infants and toddlers are not able to regulate their bodily functions to accommodate a group schedule, diapering and toileting should happen when needed rather than on a fixed timetable. Let's think about what individualizing diapering or toileting might look like. A caregiver might consider a child's temperament tendencies as she transitions a child to diapering or toileting. Some children need more time than others to transition to and from activities. Caregivers can prepare children who need extra time for transitions by letting them know ahead of time to be ready for diaper or toileting. During the diapering or toileting experience, caregivers can individualize by including the child as an active participant in the process. Caregivers can adjust the level of a child's participation to match their developmental abilities. This is a way for the child to learn self-care within a supportive relationship that they have with the caregiver. Another example of individualizing toileting might include a caregiver connecting a child's experience to what happens in their home. For example, a caregiver might say, "I know your mama sings the potty song with you. Should we do that too?" When caregivers individualize the diapering and toileting routine, they're supporting the relationship-based care and pyramid concepts of engaging children in responsive routines. In the language and book subscale, item 9 is about talking with children. At level 5, indicator 5.3, staff and family child care providers talk with a child must be responsive to a child's interests and mood. As an example, caregivers might adapt their tone of voice to match a child's mood. If a child is sad, the caregiver would adapt her response to reflect the child's emotional state. She might say, "You look sad. It's hard when mommy leaves." If a toddler is excited because he fit the last piece of a puzzle together, the caregiver's tone of voice would match the child's emotional state. She might say, "You did it. You put the puzzle together," then offer the child a high five. At level 7, indicator 7.1 requires most talk with children to be personalized and to include one-on-one communication. One way that infant-toddler caregivers and family child care providers can individualize their conversations with children is to partner with children's families to get to know children better. This can include learning more about a child's specific interests, his likes or dislikes, or learning about the people that are important in a child's life. Caregivers can also personalize conversations with children by observing children and commenting on or asking about what they observed. Let's look at Itters and Fecker's item 11, responding to children's communication. This item is about how staff or family child care providers individualize their care for infants and toddlers by tuning in to their verbal and nonverbal cues. Examples of responding to nonverbal communication could include a caregiver who notices that some of the children in her primary group need physical activity, as indicated by their running around in the classroom. The caregiver might acknowledge this nonverbal communication by saying, "It looks like you really want to run. Let's go outside so you can run safely." Another example might be a family child care provider who's bottle feeding a young infant, observing that the infant stops sucking and smiles at her. She responds to this gesture by returning the infant's smile. The provider then continues to respond to the infant's gestures and facial expressions throughout the feeding. An example of responding to children's verbal cues could include a caregiver who responds to a toddler who is holding out his cup as he says, "More." The caregiver might respond by saying, "You said more. Your cup is empty. Let's pour more water into your cup." These types of responses connect to both the relationship-based care and pyramid model practices. In the interaction subscale, item 26, they address supervision of play and learning, non-gross motor. Indicator 7.2 requires that staff or family child care providers individualize their supervision of children. Individualized supervision means that staff and providers must observe children and provide children with support that matches the child's unique needs. Examples might include a caregiver staying close to a child who has started to bite, or a caregiver helping a child who is cautious try out a new activity by staying close and offering gentle encouragement. Or a family childcare provider holding an infant on her lap to keep him safe while older children play around him. In the program structure subscale, item 31, schedule and routines, ITER's Indicator 7.1 and FICR's Indicator 5.1 require that staff and providers adjust the schedule to meet children's needs. Examples of this indicator that support individual needs might include allowing infants to sleep when they're tired rather than on a fixed schedule, changing infants' diapers as needed rather than on a fixed schedule, and feeding infants when they are hungry. As caregivers follow children's lead, they might allow toddlers to stay with materials and activities as long as they'd like. Some children bounce around to different things more often, and others stay with familiar things longer. Or caregivers might support a child's individual interests. As an example, if a toddler does not want to listen to a story, her caregiver would allow her to find an alternative activity. Both the ITERS 3 and FICRS 3 support the concept of individualized care. Recall that the definition of individualized care, which was shared at the beginning of this session, includes the practice of being responsive and adapting to each child's interests and needs. We've shared a few examples of what that might look like. As you read the items and indicators in your booklets, we know that you'll come up with additional ideas for how caregivers can meet children's individual needs. Now it's time to pull all this information together as you think about how this webinar can support your work. In a few minutes, we'll ask you to use your worksheet to complete the final learning experience for this webinar. For this learning experience, we're asking you to consider why individualized care is important for infants and toddlers, and to identify some strategies that you'd like to share with caregivers. We also want you to reflect on how the relationship-based care and pyramid model can support individualized care, and how you might use the environment rating scales to help infant toddler caregivers better understand individualized care. Please pause the webinar to complete the learning experience for slide 34, then resume the webinar when you're ready. Welcome back and congratulations. You've completed the third webinar in the Relationship-Based Care Practice series. We want to thank you for your participation in this webinar and for all the work that you do to support our infant and toddler caregivers. We look forward to your participation in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye.